and then pass it off to Luke to get started with the workshop. This is the third workshop hosted by Rowan's Google Developer Student Club. This is an organization that's interested in building software solutions to solve community problems. We're basically a project club. We do a lot of workshops on different topics based on interest. And when we have the time, our members who have some coding experience like to build projects for the community and overall just spread skills and build cool things. If that sounds like something you're interested in, I'm going to drop the Discord link right now. Just you can join that and then get in contact with us. Here you go. I'm just going to put it in chat and then circulate it afterward to anybody that came. But and with that, I'm going to pass it over to Luke to start the web development workshop. Thank you all for coming.
All right, hello everybody. Source is gone. Okay. So I'm going to start you all off with a not actually the resume at all, but instead a introduction to HTML and CSS just once more, so that you guys can gather your bearings before we move over to Mark and he makes a resume with us. So Sarosh, would you mind sharing my screen for me? All right, you guys can see that now. So here's my very, very basic HTML page. I just built a bunch of elements inside one another, and I display them on a page with no formatting at all. And my goal is to make this a nice format. So maybe the first thing I would do, given a task like this, is figure out where the elements actually are. The way that I usually do that is by, first of all, you see I have a link over here to a style sheet called cssselectors.css. That means I can place all of my CSS over in this document over here. Now I did place some preliminary CSS just so that the rest of it, what I'm doing, is going to be cleaner. But you can only have to worry about what's below down here. So the first thing I'd do when given a page like this is select all of the elements with this star selector and just give them a border. So I'll do like a 1 pixel border that's just a solid black line. And now you can see that every element has a border, and we can kind of get our bearings on what the shape actually is of this web page. Now something else I might want to do is make some white space around each element. There are actually 2 ways to do that. One is to give all the elements padding, which maybe I'll do 5 pixels, which will make 5 pixels of room inside each element before the next elements show up. But the way I prefer actually most of the time is to use a margin instead. And margin's kind of the opposite of padding. Outside of each element, I have 5 pixels of white space. So maybe I'll even do both. I'll have a margin of 5 pixels and a padding of 5 pixels. 5 pixels. So now we can kind of see that I have a bunch of elements nested within one another. And I'll display that. I'll give this page on the GitHub at the end of the workshop so you all can look at it later. But the first glaring issue that I'm seeing is this image is absolutely huge and it kind of goes off the page. That's not something that I really want to keep. So something that I might do here is select all of the images, every image that's in this page, just by putting this image tag and making it so that my maximum width is 100% of its parent. Because if it's more than 100%, then it will go off the screen, and that's not okay. Now, it's not exactly filling up its parent here, but that's just because of some quirky CSS stuff. We can worry about that later, but right now I'm just gathering my bearings on what the page is all about, so I won't mess with that yet. Now, some other CSS selectors I can use are, maybe I could grab all of the div elements and look at this, figure out which ones are those. So I could do something like have a div selector and make my background color red. Now, of course, this outer element is actually red, so it doesn't really matter which elements aren't div because we can't really tell. So maybe I'll also select paragraph elements and make them green. So right now I'm not actually making my page look nice. All I'm doing is gathering my bearings and figuring out how this page is actually working. So far, I've only showed you how to select every element and how to select elements by their type. So you'll see over here I have div elements, and I have h2 elements, and I have p elements. The way that a lot of people use, and most of the time you'll use this for styling elements, is with this class. I forget what it's called, a class for the element itself. So you'll see that I named all of these boxes right here with the div, the p, and the hn. I've named them all module. So the way that I can select all my modules is by putting a period, a dot, and then module. Now that will select all of my divs which have a module class and color their background with red. So now I can really start playing with that a little bit. Maybe for all my modules, I want to have curved edges. I can do that by having a border radius of something like 10 pixels. Now you'll see I have curved edges for all of these. So I can really play with the formatting now. Something else I might want to do is select all of the elements inside this module and no elements outside it. The way I can do that is by putting module and then this right arrow, and then I can use my selector in the same way that I did before. So here I'll select every single element inside module and make a background color of green. Now you'll see all of the elements inside my module are green and nothing else is. All right, so maybe next, something else I might want to do is select only the title elements inside each of these modules. What if, for example, I want all these titles to be centered? What I might do here is, my first intuition maybe would be to put, since I have H2 for all of my titles over here, I might get all of the H2s inside module and select them. However, you'll see I intentionally in the header section, I have an H2 as the title and also as something else. So that's not really the best thing to do, because I only want to center my title, right? Now the way I might want to do that is instead by first grabbing the H2s and also making sure that they're the first child of the module. Now all I've done is grabbed everything that's the first child of a module element and also an H2. So now I made the background color green, but I could also text align, center, and do really whatever else I want. All these CSS selectors are online. You can find them easily. And it's really all looking it up, and eventually you'll gain experience and start to memorize. All right. So, of course, this page does not look great yet, and I haven't really, there's not really a way to make it look nice without a lot of effort, unless we use, we have a lot of experience or we use special CSS tricks. And one of the biggest CSS tricks that I've seen, and that is used frequently all the time now, is flex boxes. Flex boxes are just a really fancy way to style elements that kind of handles everything for you. If I take, for example, my section, I have these divs called sections, and maybe I'll color them so you can see what I'm talking about. I'll take section and background color blue. So here are my section divs. This is one section that has a bunch of HTML elements, and then here's a second section that has all the CSS elements or selectors. If I make this a flex box by putting, display flex, you'll see that instead of having all the elements on top of one another, now they're all next to each other. This isn't the greatest way to display my information, but it definitely improves things a little bit, and we're starting to get somewhere. Something else I might want to do, besides making it into a display flex, is wrapping past the edge to make it so that things are on top of each other. So for that, I can do flex wrap. Now, I'm kind of starting to take shape with what's happening here. I have all these separate modules, which are colored and they have special title styles. And I also have things on top of each other. Things are starting to take shape. So I'm going to get rid of this first border creation for now, and we'll start organizing things like we're actually going to put them in the real website. Right off the bat, it looks like something I might want to do is add some padding or margins to these module boxes. That doesn't look great yet. So here I can maybe do padding of 5 pixels and also a margin of 5 pixels just for the module boxes. Okay. Now something else I might want to do is make sure that the modules never stretch all the way to the edge. So to do that, I can use a property called max width. Maybe I can do max width of 50%. So now it'll never stretch past 50% of the width of the document. And I deleted my image before, so I'll bring that back. Image max width to 100%. So now I'll always have at least 2 next to each other before I move on to the next. Actually, there's a padding here, so it's it's not actually at least 2. I might do the 45 here instead. Now I always have 2 next to each other. Okay, now something else to worry about is that I have this commonly used elements. This is the title of everything. So that maybe it would be best to have it separate from everything else. These titles are H1s, which means they're the biggest headers. So I can grab all the H1s inside of sections. So I can do dot section. I can even do H1 and make sure it's the first child in case I have something else. And I'll make that a width of 100%. So now I'll make sure that these titles are actually filling up the whole side, the whole length of the page. Now you can't really tell that it's filling up the whole length of the page, so maybe I'll also, for now, just to show you guys, I'll make a border in the same way that I did before. Okay, so you see now that it's filling up the whole width. Something else I might want to do for titles is align the text in the center. That's something that would be commonly done. Now, I also have a bunch of left-aligned flexbox pieces. And I failed to mention that one of the best things about flexboxes, let me make this actually a max of 400 pixels. One of the best things about flexboxes is that page resizing is handled automatically. So if I have many different size screens, maybe I'm switching from mobile to desktop, or I have lots of different types of screens that I'm working with, Flexbox handles that automatically with no special interaction from me. That's the biggest benefit of having Flexbox. Now, something else I might want to do is, instead of squishing everything to the left, I might want to spread out things differently. The way to do that is to take my Flexbox section and use the justify content tag. So, for example, if I justify content to the center, that will justify content. Then it will make everything centered. I could do space between, space evenly, and that will space everything out evenly. If I do space between, now things will touch the edge, but it'll make sure that there's space between every element. This is kind of like if you used the justified text align in Google Docs or Microsoft Word. I think maybe what looks best on this page could be space evenly. Or actually, I think I used center when I was planning this out. I think center looks nice. Now, something else I might want to do is, first of all, get rid of this red and green because I didn't plan too far ahead for that. Let's choose a little bit of a better color, like maybe light blue. That's a little bit easier on the eyes. Now, something else I might want to do is color these modules, the commonly used elements, a different color than the other ones down here. In that case, I can look at my classes that I chose here. I named all these element display, and I named all of the CSS selectors selector example. So instead of labeling light blue up here, I can say dot element display and make that one light blue. And then I can choose all of my CSS selectors and call that, maybe I'll do a background color of light green. Oh, I gotta make sure selector example, it wasn't CSS selector. All right, so I'm definitely making ground, but it looks like these headers are all the same color. Now there are two ways I could make the header background color match with its background. One way is to actually go into make sure this is, instead of dot module, I can do dot element display and dot selector example, and then I can have two separate HTML tags. But the way I prefer actually is to instead make my background color a little bit transparent. I can do that by, instead of using a color like this, I can't really use this color. I can't use colors that look like the standard color stuff, like FFF. I would make everything white. But what I can do is use RGBA. So that has a red channel, a green channel, a blue channel, and also an alpha channel. So here I can make this maybe a color of 255, 255, 255 for RGB. That's just full alpha channels, which makes everything white. And then I'll add an alpha channel of, sorry about the truck, of maybe 25%. Now, I don't know if you guys can see it on your screens, but these title pages are a little bit lighter than the rest, and these are green and these are blue. That's just because I have a transparent background that's a little bit lighter. And maybe just to clean up a little bit more, I can make my border radius 10px here as well. All right, I'm going to try to finish up so Mark can get started. But one last thing that I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you've been reading what I have on my HTML page, but these actually all describe different HTML elements and what they have inside them. So maybe something that I would want to do is put a less than sign before each one and a greater than sign after each one. Now, one way I could do that is by going directly into here and looking at each one and saying, all right, let's look at div and select that, and I can surround that in brackets like that. But it looks like brackets don't really work too well, so instead I'm going to have to use the HTML design of, I think it's ampersand less than LT. So that'll actually put a less than sign right before my div, and then GT greater than, and that'll put a greater than sign after the div. And I can go and do that for every single one all the way through. But I know that this is a common rule. I know that every single module that has a class of element display is going to have an H2 on the very top who wants a less than sign before and a greater than sign after. So what I can do here actually is use a special CSS selector called before and another one called content. And I'll show you how I'm going to do that. If I select, first of all, see how before I was selecting module first child? I can do almost the same thing, except this time select the first child of all of the element displays. And then I can use this little special selector called before. And inside this before element, I can have a content of a less than sign. And now you'll see every single one of these elements have a less than sign right before them. Now I can do the same thing exactly, except for replace it with an after. and a greater than sign. And you'll see that all my HTML tags now have actual tags around them. And I think that really cleans up the look. Now, this isn't the best website. It's definitely not super nice looking, but I hope that it helped you guys to understand a little bit more about how CSS works and HTML works. Before we move forward to Mark, do you guys have any questions that you can ask, that you would like to ask?
Yeah, I've been grabbing questions in the chat.
Okay.
Somebody asked, is there going to be a recording after the session? Yeah, we're going to upload a YouTube video. If you RSVP to this, you will definitely get a link to the video. If you didn't RSVP, this is kind of weird, but I'll send a link to the RSVP at the event. I guess I can do that. This is just how I can collect email addresses information, right? Here you go. And afterward, I'll send a recording of this. No problem. Somebody asked a question about project requests. We do take project requests. There's a process we've outlined on our website. I posted it in the chat as well, just rowandsc.com, where we're basically going to require like a requirements document, basically a very specific outline of what you're looking for, such that we can actually put ourselves to work to do it. And we would also need to like talk to you personally and so on and so forth. But if anybody else is wondering, we do that. Any other questions about what Luke had to say? Luke, do you have a paid lesson on Udemy?
On Udemy? No.
Yeah, so someone asked me. All right. If there are any more questions, we'll move on to Mark.
Okay. Hi, how's everyone doing? I guess I'll share my screen. Okay, and then spoilers.
Oh, hang on. Here you go. Now your screen is up, Mark.
You can see my screen? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And you can see my screen, and can you read the text?
Yes, it's live streaming. You're good.
Awesome. Okay. So we just learned some stuff about HTML and CSS, and now let's try to give that a bit of an application. So we're going to try to make a resume, and I think that might be a neat thing to do. So what's an important thing for a resume? You're going to want to have your name, right? So let's give us a name. I'll call this Dumbledore. It's a fun little name. And we can give them a little description. So that was with an H1 tag, which is the top level header. So that's where you want to put your most important.
Mark,
yeah?
Can you just zoom in real quick, or like make the text bigger? It's not as visible on stream as it is here.
Is that better?
Like one more of those. All right, that's good.
Awesome.
Yeah, it should be visible now. It'll appear bigger on stream in like 7 seconds. That's roughly the lag. And real quick, while we have a second for it to load, I'm just going to address a question somebody asked. How closely does this kind of thing relate to what you would do on the job? Nowadays, we do have a lot of more modern frameworks for web development. And in later parts, we are going to cover those as well. But they don't really make sense if you don't have the foundation from where we've been so far. So that's why we're sort of starting with bare bones basics, so that all the minutia of what we're going to be working with in, say, React and other web application paradigms make more sense. All right. Yes. It looks like the stream is caught up, so I'll let you continue.
Okay. So we have a name, and let's try to give them a little bit of a description, why don't we? So after we do the H1 tag, let's try to use a P tag, which is a paragraph tag, which is what we're just using for normal text. So we're going to say professional, wizard, and educator in the United Kingdom. It's a nice little description for him. So that's all well and good, but it's not very pretty. But we're gonna try to make this look a bit better. So let's go into the style tag. Luke went over all this, but this is where we can put CSS styling. We can also put it in a separate file, but for now we're going to put it here. So why don't we first try to make it so that this is all centered and looks like it's like in a document almost. So I'm going to move this over a little bit. And let's put this in a div. And we're going to give this div a class, and it's going to be called container. And in this container, we're going to style the whole document just so that it'll look like it's fit onto the screen as if you pulled up an actual resume. So if you recall, when we're trying to style a class, we use the dot, and then we can say container, and we can get into the styling. So in the container, first off, let's give us the margin auto. Why did that not do anything? Let's do some experimenting. Oh, I see. Okay. So this is, yeah, I'll get to that. But we have the margin auto, and then we're going to say width. We'll say 50. 50 REM. Now, what is an REM, you say? Well, there are many different units that you can use when styling things. So you just saw PX used a bunch, which was pixels. Nowadays, what we try to do is we try to use responsive units so that when you are using a browser of a different size, perhaps a phone, things try to stay visible and work better. So we try to not use pixels as much as possible. So there are different types of units. A common unit is an EM, which is the width of the M character. But using an REM is pretty similar, but it avoids things from changing in text size. What the R stands for is root. So it just uses it bases it off of the text size of the root of the document instead of in each individual component. So the unit is the same size everywhere in the document. So now that we give it a width, and I go down here, and let's say I open this up and inspect element, you can see the container in the blue highlight. That's the actual size of the element. And then when I gave it that margin auto tag, it gave it margins on the outside, which have it center. So if I were to get rid of this tag like that, now all of a sudden the container, and here I can give this the container a background color to make this more clear. Background color blue. So now we can see that this is the actual size of the container. So it no longer takes up the entire document because if we're trying to make a resume, so you don't want that to take up the entire width of a normal document. You want it to be smaller. But when we give it margin auto, it centers the whole thing. Electronic M. Okay. So we have Albus Dumbledore, and let's get rid of the color, and professional wizard and educator in the UK. Now that's nice, but let's try to give it a bit more styling. I don't know about you, but I don't really like this font. I think it's boring. Let's try to make it a bit more interesting. So I'm going to open up the body tag, and I'm just going to style the text in here. Now, I could put it in the container, but in case we also wanted to have text elsewhere, we can set the default here. I'm going to say font family, Arial. Now, the text is in Arial. Now, you'll see my editor gave me a bit of a warning here. Font property, font family does not have generic default. Because what if, for example, your browser or your computer does not have Arial installed as a usable font? That seems unlikely since Arial is quite common, but I could be using a really weird font, like what's a weird font? Let's say I say Wingdings. Yeah, see, my browser doesn't have Wingdings installed. Say it again.
Can you use the font Comforta? Is that
what was it called?
That's pretty unpopular. I think it's called COMFORTA, something like that.
Yeah, so
I can't find it anywhere.
It's not installed here on my browser. So what we see is we just see the old text again. Whereas if I made it Arial, it does it like that. So let's say I wanted Comforta, but in case it didn't work, we're going to fall back to another font called Sans Serif. Now you'll notice that's the same as Arial. If I go back and do it here. So that looked pretty much the same as sans serif. Yeah, it's identical. That's because this browser implements sans serif as the Arial font. Every browser is guaranteed to have 3 fonts built in. Not really, but 3 font types. So we can have serif, which just the normal serif, which is this font, the one that kind of looks like Times New Roman, and it probably is Times New Roman in this case. And what a serif is these little decorations on the edge of each thing. And sans serif. And what sans serif is just without those sans serifs, without those serifs. And this is implemented as Arial in most browsers. So if I say Arial, almost certainly it's going to have that font enabled. But let's say it didn't, it would actually fall back to that sans serif one, which is kind of the opposite of what we want. So instead of Arial, I'm going to say Arial, comma, sans serif. So now it doesn't give me an error anymore because it can fall back on sans serif in case Arial isn't installed, which again is unlikely, but it's something we want to think about. Okay, so now we have the font. Let's try to make this header a bit more interesting because right now it's kind of tiny. We want something cooler. I'm going to say H1, so we're styling the header tag, and we're going to say font size 4 REM. Now look at that, that's a lot bigger. And again, we're using the REM unit. We could use a bunch of different units. We could say 4 pixels, which is very tiny, now you can't even see it. We could say 4 inches, which is very large. We could say 4%, which is each letter being 4% of the display width, which I guess is also quite tiny. But you should usually not do that. The only unit you should be using for fonts are pixels or some other unit like REM. Don't give your font size in percent. So this is a bigger font size. I think that looks a bit better. Let's also try to give it an interesting color. Let's go for a green color. I think that would be interesting. So I'm going to say color, and that's just color. It's not font color. Just color is how you define the font color. And then I'm going to give the color in the hex code. So I'm going to say 4C5804. And this is a nice like dark green, almost olive color, which I think is nice. So that's that. But we want this little section to look a bit better too. But instead of actually styling the P tag, I'm going to give it a class because let's say I want to use the P tag somewhere else, but I don't want to give it the same style. So I'm going to give it the class lead, just because it's like the lead in. So I'll go down here, give it a new class lead. And we're gonna make it a bit bigger, not as big. Font size 1.5 REM. So that's a bit bigger. It's not huge, but it's still more present. And yeah, so that's that. So now we have the name and a little description. That's still not very interesting though, because remember, in a resume, you want to list things about yourself. So let's try to add some more info. So I'm going to say H2, so a bit of a subheader, and we're going to say personal history. So Dumbledore's personal history. Now I accidentally put that outside of the tag. Right. Okay. So that looks all well and good. Although I kind of don't like how these are very close together. I kind of want this to be separated a bit more. So on the lead, I'm going to say margin bottom 3 REM. So we're just going to push it down a little bit. And I can show you the, oh, what the heck? I can show you what this actually looks like if I go to inspect element and I inspect this. So we can see the blue is the actual size of the element, and then the orange color is the margins. So we can see now we have a bigger margin on the bottom. Okay, so we have the header for the personal history, and let's add some text in there. Now I don't know Dumbledore's backstory, so I'm just gonna copy and paste some random text and put it in there, and we'll give him another paragraph of text because I think that's an interesting thing to do. So now we have some text in there, but that doesn't really look nice either, in my opinion. I think maybe we should try to stick with that green aesthetic maybe for the header. And also, maybe we should give this like some extra styling, this whole section. So I'm going to take this whole section that I just made. I'm going to put this in its own div. So we're creating an individual section for just that. So I'm going to put everything back in there. And then I'm going to give this a class. I'm going to give it the section class. So now we've defined just an actual section of text. So we go up here. I'm going to say section. And we're going to give this a little bit of styling. So section. Where did I have that defined? Oh, actually, I don't think. Yeah, actually, yeah, I don't have anything there. But if I go in section and then I give this the class, let's say section header, and we can style that. So I'm going to say section header. And let's give it something interesting. So, and you'll notice this time, instead of styling the H2 tag, I'm styling this actual class because I want this to be a very specific thing. I don't just want this for every H2. So for the section header, I'm going to give it another color. We're going to choose the same color as before. So is that the same? Yeah, 4C5804. So now we see that same little color. But I also want to give it a bit of a more, to make it stand out a little more. So I'm actually going to give it a border bottom. And then I'm going to say solid. And I'm going to try to give a bit of a different color here. Maybe 8B9F28. So it's not the same green, it's a bit brighter. Now, you may wonder, why am I giving this a border when it's text? Can't I just use underline? So let's try that. I'm going to say text decoration, underline. And now we have a little underline there, and that's interesting. And we can zoom in and see that. But I feel like it's maybe a bit too high up. It's right on the text, and it doesn't go all the way to the end. So I think maybe giving the whole class a styling might look a bit better. So get rid of that. Put that back. So now we have this little line going under it. So it's a nice little section header, and that's why it's called the section header. So that's cool. And now, just like Luke talked to you about earlier with reusing code, we can create another section with another section header. So I can make a new class, going to call it section. Put another H2, and then I'm going to give this the class section. And then, of course, like I said, you can just style the H2 element here. I'm just trying to mix things up. So I'm going to call it section header again. And this time, what's next, do you think? What about his education? That's always important to put on a resume. So now we have that again here. And then look, I didn't even need to do anything. It's automatically just styled like that, and it has the underline. Isn't that neat? So what is the education do you think I should put here? Well, we can try to put this in like a little list. So I'm going to say unordered list. That's what UL means, which is essentially just bullet points. And I'm going to say LI, which is list item. And let's say Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Isn't that neat? So now we have a bullet point right there. And maybe we should add some more info about his time in school. So I want to have a sub bullet point. So we have this bullet, and then I want to go into that. So I can actually open this up, and I can add another unordered list into that list element. So I'm creating another list. And I can say list item, say Master of Arts in Conjuring. So you can see now it automatically has styled it and indented it a little bit. And let's say he also has a Bachelor of Arts in Potions. So that's cool. And then maybe after that, he got some other education. So we're going to give another list element, so a list item. So now that I'm out of this unordered list, we're back over to the start, and we have the original bullet. Let's say he went to Rowan University, and we're going to give him another indent, and let's say he got a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. I think that's canon. what is UL again? I see in chat. UL stands for unordered list. Now, that's not the only type of list you might imagine. What about an ordered list? So I could change the UL to OL, and now all of a sudden it becomes an ordered list. And I can change this one again. OL. And then, wait, what? Oh, wait, why didn't that change? It is interesting. Oh, because I think it has that. Okay, yeah. Well, yeah. So you can see here when I change this from UL to OL, we went from unordered list to ordered list, and it automatically adds the numbering. So you don't actually need to go through the trouble of adding the numbers yourself. But I feel like that's probably not a good styling for a resume. So we're going to go with unordered list. And then again, LI is list item, and you can just put anything in an LI. So you can put text, or you can also just put another. You can just put another list in there, and you can get a sub list, which is neat. So we can say that that's all for his education. But I don't know about you. I don't think this list of bullets really looks very good. So we're going to try to change that. Why don't we actually go over here? And this time we're just going to go directly to the tags again. Unordered list. We're going to say list style none. What did that do? That got rid of the little bullet points, just because I didn't think they looked very good. I think indentation would just look a bit better. And I don't want it to be indented that much. So I'm going to say padding left 0. So now there's no padding, but that created a problem. Now everything is kind of at the same level, and that's not what I want. So what do we do about that? Well, I can say, why not the top level unordered list, so the root of the list, has no indentation, but an unordered list inside of another unordered list, that time we can give it the padding. So I'm going to say unordered list. Whoa, would you look at that? 2 of them. Padding left reverts. So it just goes back to the normal styling. Would you look at that? Now we have the top level unordered list, which is just consists of this, and then it also has an extra one inside of it. And since this was styled by this, and I can give it a bit of a background color red just to make it obvious, you can see this is all styled and not indented, or it is indented, whereas the other one is not. So we can be very specific with what we want. I still don't personally think that looks very good. I think we should give it a bit more. Let's say list item, and we're going to give it the same color as before. Now, you may think having to type out all this color stuff is kind of annoying, and you're right. We'll get back to that later. But what I did here is I changed all the color back to what we had in terms of this. So not what we had in the normal text, but instead what we have in this stuff. But I think I only want that to kind of give it a bit of a highlight, just for the top level maybe. So why not, when we're down in the lower level of the list, we just get rid of that. So list item, font weight, or actually, no, sorry, I want to keep the color the same. I want to change the font weight. So the font weight is what makes it bold, essentially. Font weight, bold. And you'll notice that maybe I can simplify this. But, what we have here is we're just emboldening everything in here. And if I go to a list item, within a list item, I can do font weight normal. There we go. So now we have this. But you'll notice I'm styling the list item here, which contains this text. But you know what else contains this text? The unordered list. So why don't I actually move the list item styling from there into there, and I move the double list item into the double unordered list. And that makes everything simpler. UL equals unordered list as opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, an unordered list is just bullets, so it's just bullet points. And then ordered list has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then also in CSS styling, you can actually change it to be A, B, C, D, or like Roman numerals. So I, V, so on. But this is just using unordered list. Now, a lot of times in web development, we actually use unordered lists just to arrange things, even though they don't actually show up as lists. So here, this doesn't really show up as a list at all. This is basically just adding a tab here. It's basically just for the organization. There's no bullet points here. When you see this, you might not immediately think, oh, that's a list, but it is. So that's neat. Why don't we try to add another section? I think that would be interesting. I don't think anyone's ever added a third section to a web page before, so we're breaking ground here. Stick with me. We're going to call this another section. And we're going to give this another header. And we're going to call this qualifications. I'm sure he's very qualified, but we just want to help him out here. Yeah, okay. Qualifications. And what are we going to add here? Well, let's do what we did before with the unordered list. We're going to add another unordered list. We're going to add a list item. We're going to say magical spells. And then we're going to give another unordered list, so we're indenting again. And as I'm typing, you can see we have the top level, and then we're going to get to a further level in. I'm going to say list item, flipendo, list item, Wingardium Leviosa, and Scourge. That neat. And we can see these are all indented and not bold. So then we're going to come down and we're going to give another list item at the top level. And then we're going to say potions. How do you keep the website updated without refreshing it? This is part of the editor I'm using called IntelliJ. And it has a live edit feature where it'll automatically upload things. Or where we'll automatically update it. So you can see, well, it's probably too small, but I'm not actually opening a file. I'm opening essentially a web server being run by my IDE. Most editors probably have a feature where you can do that. Or if they don't, there's a plugin for it, most likely. So potions, we're going to get another unordered list. List item, Felicis, Eli, Poly. Juice. And that's nice. And then we're going to add one more, probably. Let's say, so we can have 3 this time instead of 2. Another. Oh, I forgot to give a title. Defense against the dark arts. What happened here? And then we're going to get another unordered list. I'm sure you can see where I'm going. Another list item, Horcrux hunting certification. And then Patronus conjurer. Awesome. So now we have a bunch of nice information on here. So what can we do to make this maybe a bit more informative? Well, we can try to maybe add some contact information, and we could just keep going with this. But maybe, I feel like if we really wanted to make this stand out, maybe we could, I don't know, add a column on the left side or something, try to make it a little less conventional than most resumes. So let's try to do that. How about before the whole, before this whole thing, let's actually add another div. And at first, you may think that this is just going to go above what we have over here with Dumbledore. And it might, but I'm going to say div ID, and I'm going to say side. And I want to group all of this now. So everything we just wrote, I want to group all of this in another div called ID. We're going to say, what should we call this? Maybe content. I'm going to say info. We just put all that back in there. And sometimes when you do a lot of stuff without doing it, yeah, it likes to refresh. So now we can have everything on the side is we're going to put right here. So if I just wrote something, so let's say I wrote H1 side. Now it's right above it, but that's not really what we want. First off, actually, what I'm going to write is I want an image for our panel Dumbledore. So I'm going to say image, source, picture.png, and alt face. Now, what the alt is, and then I'm also going to give it an ID face. What the alt tag is, if you're not aware, is in case the browser doesn't render it, or in case you're using a screen reader for someone who has limited vision, it'll tell them what it's supposed to be. So this is cool, but I wouldn't say that this really looks good as a resume. So we should try to fix that. Now, first off, let's try to style the image. We don't need to change it that much, but I want to change the face. I just want to give it the border radius 50%. And what that'll do is it'll just make it a circle. I think that's pretty cool. But what's more important probably is the side thing. So I'm going to say side. And then I am going to say border. Well, before I actually, I'm going to say, oh, what I forgot, of course. Container, it contains this whole thing still. So it contains both the side, which is actually the top right now, and the info, which is everything else. Now, we just had a whole presentation on flex. So why don't we try to use that? Say display flex. Oh, would you look at that? Now it's in columns. Isn't that cool? So now let's try to do something about that. So I'm going to say, I'm going to give this a width. Well, first off, the container, I want to change that to 60. I just want to make it a bit bigger. And I'm going to say, I want to give the side, which contains right now just a little circle with Dumbledore's face. And I'm going to give it the width of, what do you think? I'm going to say 15 rem. But that didn't quite do what we wanted. Now it's just kind of overlaid on each other because the picture is too big. Because if I do inspect element, I try to open this up. Look, the side is kind of the right size. That's what we want, but the picture's spilling out of it. That's not good. So I'm going to go back into face and say width 80%. And now the width of it is 80% of the total width of the side. But that's really tiny. That's not really what we want. So we have to do something about that. If I were to change the size of the window, maybe, oh, now it's no longer tied together. Let's try to fix that. There we go. If I were to change the size of the window just momentarily and inspect element again, we can see that the side is still quite small and the info is much, much bigger. So I think what we should do is try to make the side a bit bigger. I think I actually typed in the wrong number. Yeah, so not 15 rem. We're going to say maybe 30. A bit bigger. We're getting there. Maybe 40. That didn't quite get there. Now, let's look at what we had earlier. The container is 40 rem. Now, it is 60 rem. But I said 40 rem. But you'll notice this definitely is not taking up 2/3 of the entire page. What's the problem there? Well, the problem might just be the thing that we like, display flex. Now, let's say I got rid of that for a moment. Now, I think this is probably about the right size if that were that. So I'm going to get rid of the width 80% on that. But that's probably working now that it's not flex. But we don't want that because we want we do want it to be in this column style. So I said display flex, but we have to do something to make sure that it doesn't mess up. So what was the way that I did that again? Right, so the container is display flex, the margin is auto, and the width is 60 rem. So that's cool. And then the side, where is that? Yeah, so we want to give it a bit of a padding right 2 rem. And that gave it just some extra padding there. And then here, I'm going to pull it a bit more this way. And something is not quite right. But a bit of a technical difficulty here. Oh wait, what if I change this to 40%? And then, oh, wait. Css, that's not what I want at all. What's the problem here? Why are things messing up? If I were to cheat a little bit and just put this back to what I had before. Container drawer, I'm gonna say. Side. Okay, I think maybe the image size is different. Apologies for the technical difficulties that were going on here. Oh, wait, no, that is right. It's just the width here shouldn't be 80%, it should be 90. Yeah, okay, that's what I wanted. And then I want to make the face go a bit further down. Or actually, first I want to make the side thing have a bit of a border just so we can see it a bit better to make sure that it's a different thing. So I'm going to give the side a border right. And what we can do there is I only want to give it a colored border on one side. So I'm going to pick this color again. And this color is not what we had earlier. I want this color, which is what we have for the styling everywhere else. So I want this lighter green. And again, this is getting pretty tedious. Maybe we should do something about that we have to keep writing that. Oh, and then the height. This is just for an example to see that. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. Is that not? Why do we not have the border? Border right. What's going on there? That's very interesting. Well, wait, I can get back to that. First, I want to make it so that we don't need to keep writing that color. So what we can actually do in CSS is a variable. So I can say we do this with a dash dash. What should we call this? Maybe we can call it accent. Seems like a nice name to call it. So I'm going to say, and this is the same color I was using before, 8B9F28. That neat. Now, when I want to access that color, I can actually do it by writing var accent. And let's say, what are we going to call it? Let's say accent text. And I can give that another color, 4C5804. And that's what we have down here. So instead of that, I can write var accent text. And everywhere that I have here, I can say var accent text and var accent text and var accents. So with that, now I don't need to keep typing that variable every time. And let's say I wanted to change it, so I want the accent to be red. Look, now it propagates throughout the whole thing, and I don't need to go setting everything all over again, which would be really annoying. So let's try to add something into the sidebar. Let's say we want a bit of a tag over here. So I'm going to say up the stairs into your lessons, and I want a div class section. And this section is going to be similar to what we had before. And I want to give it another section, class section header. And I'm going to say contact for his contact info. And why don't we, I'm not going to do an unordered list this time. We can just do it in paragraph tags because I want them all to be at the same level. We can say Hogwarts, School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Scotland, UK, which according to Google is where it's located. And I don't know if you recall the Flu network. Let's give them the Flu network ID of 08372. And let's say his phone number is the 101 502 0832. 0832. And what else? Let's give him an email. You can say Dumbledore A at Hogwarts.edu. And maybe let's give him another section. Div class section h2 class section header. We're going to say portfolio. So we can list Dumbledore's work, perhaps. So P, and then he's going to have a MagicNet account, which is a very real website. I don't actually know. Albus Dumbledore. And let's give him a GitHub because he has that computer science degree. GitHub.com/MerlinsBeard, which I'm sure is what his username would be. And I don't like how the picture is that far up. I'm going to make it a bit farther down. Padding top. Oh. Let's say that his face, I think he's probably a 1 REM down kind of guy. No, I want to say 3. Oh, what the heck? Padding, of course not. I meant margin top. Oh. But that was an interesting effect. You look at that. If I made that 5, kind of looks like a guitar pick. I'm going to leave it like that. I think that's no, I'm not. Margin top 3 REM. I think that looks pretty good. Yeah. So I feel like we've given Dumbledore a pretty nice resume over here. I don't know about you. So does anyone have any questions about what we went over? Oh, wait, of course. There's one last thing. We want that line down the middle. And I'm not sure. Oh, my God. I feel like an idiot. The border right attribute. You can't just give it a color. It doesn't work like that. You need to give it solid. Would you look at that? Of course. And I could give it a width. I feel like I can probably just leave it like that. It looked ridiculous. I need solid. So I can instead say dashed, and it would be like that. Or dot dashed, dot dot dash. But I just want solid for now. And this is right up against that, which you might actually like how that sticks together, but I personally do not. So let's also give the side a margin right of 2 REM. And then I also want this to be height, not 50 REM, but 100%. Oh, that doesn't look quite right. Side. Oh, right. Yeah, so I actually do want this to be a specified height. So I'm going to say 70 REM because I want to, not 75. Let's say 60. I want to go a bit below it. It did it on its own. Okay, there we go. I think that looks pretty neat. So does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, any questions at all?
No? I don't believe you. Someone has to have a question.
I'll give it a few minutes as well, counting for lag and anything you might think up.
Amazing. Now I just got to go copy that. All of this code will be available on our GitHub. So. No questions? Okay. We went a few minutes over, but.
All right. Thank you very much for coming. If you guys are interested in DSC, one more time, we're a Google-backed club interested in solving community problems with software solutions. Feel free to join our Discord and reach out to us. Also, check out our website. And if you didn't RSVP to this event and you're here right now, I'm going to give you the link to the RSVP so we can collect your email and send you this introduction afterward. And we'd really appreciate it if you could send feedback to rowandevelopers@gmail.com for what you'd like to see in parts 2 or 3. We wanted to keep this as basic as possible, but maybe in the future we can cover things like React and maybe server-client interaction and putting like JavaScript into your actual web applications. But it's all based on what you guys want. We just want to keep the very first one basic, make sure that all levels of experience can follow along. Here is a Google form if you didn't fill it out to RSVP to the event. sure you fill it out now. After this video uploads to Twitch, I will put it on YouTube and send it out to everybody that RSVP'd along with anyone else that wants it. Any last minute questions?